Welcome to Moonlight Mate Stories. Tonight, under the silver glow of the moon, you'll hear a tale of love, power, and destiny. Sit back, close your eyes, and let the moon guide your heart. Rain slashed across the forest like broken glass, cutting through the night in silver ribbons. Each drop stung against Aria's skin as she ran. Barefoot, bleeding, breath tearing through her throat like fire. The forest wasn't quiet tonight. It was alive, whispering, watching, holding its breath with her. Somewhere behind her, a howl split the darkness, not the call of a friend, not of a protector. No, this was a hunt, and she was the prey. Her lungs burned, her legs trembled, but she didn't dare stop. The shadows moved like living things, shapes darting between the trees, glints of silver flashing in the stormlight. The hunters were close. Too close. She could smell their rage, iron, smoke, wet fur, and hatred. She stumbled, her knee hit the mud, and a cry tore from her lips before she could silence it. The sound echoed, sharp and desperate, swallowed instantly by the wind. Aria pushed herself up, her fingers clawing through roots slick with rain, forcing her broken body forward. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Looking back meant dying. Her ribs ached where the arrow had grazed her earlier, silver-tipped. The poison burned under her skin like tiny needles crawling through her blood. Her wolf form flickered in and out, fighting her, trying to shift, trying to heal. But it was no use. She was too weak, too scared, too tired. The storm howled around her, almost as if it was alive, matching the pounding of her heart, matching her terror, matching the pain she didn't have the strength to scream. Lightning split the sky, and for a heartbeat, the forest glowed white. That's when she saw it, the old watchtower, abandoned, crumbling, half swallowed by ivy and fog, a place forgotten by time, or maybe protected by it. Aria stumbled toward it, clutching her side. The wooden door gave way under her weight, and she fell inside. The silence hit her like a punch. Only the sound of her own ragged breathing filled the air. And beneath it, the faint, relentless rhythm of her heart. Thud. 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 She pressed a hand against her chest, and that's when she saw them. The runes. Faint, glowing silver beneath her skin. Moving, pulsing, alive. The mark of the lost alpha. She had tried to bury it, hide it, forget what it meant, but the moon had found her again. And under that light, no secret stayed buried for long. Outside, thunder rumbled, deep and close, like a growl from the heavens. She pressed herself against the cold stone wall, trying to still her shaking hands. Her breath came out in clouds. Her body screamed for rest, but her mind was a storm all on its own. Not again, she whispered into the darkness. Not another pack turning on me. The words broke her. They weren't just a thought. They were a wound reopening, an ache that had never healed. She remembered their faces, the ones who once called her sister, friend, Lunar, the ones who later called her monster, who chased her out under the same moon that now followed her like an accusing eye. Her throat tightened, her hands trembled, and still she couldn't cry. Tears were for wolves who still had homes. For hearts that still believed they were worth saving. Aria crouched in the corner, staring through a crack in the old tower wall. Outside, the rain fell harder. Each drop glistened like molten silver in the moonlight, dripping from the trees, painting the ground in pale fire. And beneath that light, she saw movement, a shadow gliding between the trees. Slow, purposeful, not like the hunters. This one was silent, calm. But every part of her, every instinct, every memory, every scar, screamed that something was wrong. The storm quieted, just a little. The air thickened, heavy, charged, waiting. She held her breath. The forest held its breath. And then, she heard it. A growl. Low. Deep. Not of hate, but of warning. Something, or someone, was coming closer. Aria pressed her back to the cold wall, eyes fixed on the door. The wind howled through the cracks, whispering her name like a cruel memory. Aria, Aria. Each whisper felt like a ghost of her past come back to life. She could smell him before she saw him, wolf scent mixed with rain, smoke, and danger. It wasn't one of the hunters. This was different. Older, stronger, more wild. Her heart raced. The mark under her skin flared hotter, glowing brighter until it painted her veins in silver light. It felt alive, like it was trying to tell her something. To run, to fight, to surrender. She didn't know anymore. Her breath hitched as a silhouette filled the doorway. Broad shoulders, wet hair clinging to a sharp jawline. Eyes, too bright, too sharp, too wolf. And when he spoke, it was barely above a whisper. Aria Vale. Her name. He said her name like he'd been waiting his whole life to speak it. Every muscle in her body went still. Every fear she'd ever had came rushing back. How did he know her name? Who was he? Why didn't she feel afraid? When she should have. The silence stretched, broken only by the steady beat of the rain and the echo of her heart trying to tear through her chest. Something ancient stirred inside her, something she'd spent years burying under guilt, rejection, and exile. Her wolf shifted beneath her skin, restless, hungry, recognizing something her mind refused to. Outside, lightning flashed again, and for an instant, the whole world froze in silver light. Her, the stranger, the storm. And in that moment, she knew. This was no ordinary meeting, no accident. This was fate, the kind that ruined everything and saved nothing. If you're listening under the moonlight, don't forget to subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories, where every heartbeat tells a story that burns. The storm swallowed his name before she could repeat it. Kael. It lingered in her head like a forbidden word, heavy, dangerous, alive. The exiled alpha of Nightborn. The wolf every pack whispered about when the fires burned low and fear was thick in the air. They said he was cursed. They said he'd killed his own father to claim the moon's favor. They said he vanished under the same storm that now wrapped around them both. But Aria didn't believe the stories anymore. Stories were for wolves who hadn't seen the world burn. Now he stood in the doorway, silent, drenched, radiating power that made the air itself vibrate. His presence pressed against her chest, stealing her breath. The glow of her runes pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, though he hadn't moved a step closer. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The rain dripped from his hair, traced the line of his jaw, and fell to the floor in silver drops. His eyes, that strange mix of gold and grey, locked on her like they could see past her fear, past her pain, down to the secret she'd buried beneath her skin. He said her name again, softer this time. Aria Vale. It wasn't a question, it was recognition. Her pulse faltered. She backed away instinctively until her shoulders hit the cold stone wall. Don't come any closer. He tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't have said your name. The sound of his voice sent something sharp and electric down her spine. It wasn't soothing. It was raw, threaded with a strange sorrow, like every word cost him something. Outside, a howl broke through the storm. Closer now. The hunters had caught the scent again. Kael's head snapped toward the noise. His jaw tightened. Silver-tipped arrows, he muttered under his breath. Idiots don't even know what they're hunting. He turned back to her, eyes narrowing. You're bleeding. She flinched at the concern in his tone. It's none of your business. He stepped forward, just one slow, deliberate stride, and the world seemed to shift. The air thickened, heat radiating from his body despite the rain. Her wolf stirred under her skin, restless, responding to him in ways she didn't understand. It is my business, he said quiet and lie, when your scent is drawing them straight to us. Before she could respond, a flash of silver cut through the fog, an arrow whistling through the air. Kael moved faster than sight, catching it mid-flight. The metal hissed as it burned his palm. Smoke curled between his fingers. He threw it aside and grabbed her arm. "Move!" They burst through the back of the watchtower, into the storm again. The forest was chaos. Lightning turning trees into silhouettes of ghosts, rain hitting like needles. She stumbled, nearly fell, but Kael caught her, steadying her without slowing his pace. The hunter's shouts grew louder, carried by the wind. "Why are you helping me?" she shouted over the thunder. His answer came like a growl, close to her ear. "Because the moon chose you, long before you chose yourself." Something in his voice cracked open a memory she didn't want. A flash of moonlight, a prophecy, a promise whispered in the night when she was too young to understand. She shoved it away. The forest ahead dropped sharply into a ravine. Below, the river churned like a creature in pain. Kael didn't hesitate. "Hold on." Before she could protest, he pulled her against him and jumped. The wind tore the breath from her lungs. The cold hit like a blade. They plunged into the water, the current dragging and them under. She felt his grip tighten, strong, steady, anchoring her in the chaos. The world became noise and motion and darkness. When they surfaced, she gasped, coughing, eyes burning from the cold. Kael's arm was around her, his chest rising and falling against her back. He pulled her toward the rocks at the far edge of the riverbank, his movements sharp, despite the blood seeping from his arm. When they reached the shore, she collapsed against the mud, trembling. Kael stood beside her, watching the tree line. His wet hair clung to his face. His breathing was rough, but controlled. The hunters didn't follow. The storm had covered their trail. For the first time since she'd met him, Aria realized he was injured. The burn from the arrow had spread, dark veins crawling up his wrist, pulsing faintly. "You caught a silver head," she said quietly. "That poison doesn't forgive." He looked down at the wound and then back at her. "Neither do I." She hesitated, torn between distrust and instinct. "You'll die if you don't let me help." A shadow of a smile touched his lips, faint, humorless. "You think I haven't died before?" His words unsettled her. There was no arrogance in them, only truth. She tore a strip from her cloak and stepped closer. He didn't move away. When her fingers brushed his skin, the world seemed to hold its breath. The bond, faint, trembling, impossible, flared between them. His pulse matched hers, the same rhythm, the same beat, the same pull she had sworn never to feel again. She wrapped his arm, but her hands shook. He didn't look at her, just watched the rain dripping from the rocks, the storm easing into silence. "You shouldn't be here," he said finally. "Not in Bloodridge Valley. It's cursed land." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Then what are you doing here?" "Following something I lost." The air between them shifted again. Heavy, intimate, painful. Before she could ask what he meant, the wind changed direction, colder, sharper. Snow began to fall, soft and sudden. The forest around them darkened as the temperature dropped. Kael's gaze lifted to the mountains. "We can't stay here. There's a cave not far from this river. We move before the ice sets in." Aria hesitated, her body screaming for rest, but the look in his eyes, the warning there, left no room for argument. She followed. The snow deepened quickly, crunching beneath their boots. Every breath turned to mist. The forest became a labyrinth of white and shadow, branches heavy with frost. She could barely feel her fingers. When she stumbled, Kael caught her again. Effortlessly, like he'd done it 1,000 times before. His arm stayed around her waist longer than necessary. Long enough for her to feel the heat beneath his skin, the steady thrum of life beneath the cold. They reached the mouth of the cave, a dark opening carved into the rock, hidden beneath frozen vines. Kael ducked inside first, checking the shadows. When he was sure it was safe, he gestured for her to follow. Inside, it was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every heartbeat echo. He lit a small flame from a flint he carried, and the walls came alive with faint light. Ice crystals shimmered, casting reflections that looked like moonlight trapped in glass. Aria sank to the ground near the fire. Her body ached. Her hands were raw. She watched Kael sit across from her, his broad frame half in shadow, half in light. Neither spoke. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was heavy with all the things they couldn't yet say. After a while, Aria broke it. "Why do you know my name?" Kael's eyes lifted, catching the firelight. "Because once," he said slowly, "your name was the only thing the moon whispered." Her breath caught. "That doesn't make sense." "It will," he murmured, "when you stop running from what you are." She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but his gaze held her still. There was no dominance in it, no command, just a quiet certainty that unsettled her more than any threat could. The fire crackled between them. Outside, the wind howled against the cave walls. Aria drew her knees to her chest, shivering. Kael noticed. Without a word, he moved closer, his warmth seeping into the air between them. "Stay back," she said softly. He stopped, his voice rough. "I'm not going to hurt you." That's what they all said. His expression changed, not anger, but something deeper, regret. He sat down beside her anyway, leaving just enough space for her to breathe, but close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. For a long moment, they just listened, to the storm fading, to the quiet hum of fire, to their own uneven breathing. Then, softly, he said, "You carry the mark." Her pulse jumped. "You saw it?" He nodded. "It called to me. I didn't ask for it. Neither did I." Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world outside the cave ceased to exist. The bond pulsed again, faint but undeniable. Two wolves marked by the same moon, drawn by something older than memory. She looked away first. "I don't even know who you are anymore." Kael's reply came like a confession. "I don't either." The fire flickered, shadows crawling up the walls like restless spirits. Outside, the storm finally broke, leaving only silence, thick and expectant. And in that silence, two wolves, both lost, both broken, sat side by side, unaware that fate had already begun to weave them back together. Sometimes the moon doesn't ask permission to bind two souls. Sometimes it simply decides, and waits for the night they finally see each other. The cave was quiet now, the kind of quiet that hums behind the ears, filling the spaces where words don't dare go. The fire had sunk into embers, soft glowing hearts of orange buried under ash. Aria stared into them, the light dancing across her face, carving shadows that looked too much like memories. Sleep wouldn't come, not here, not beside him. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the night it all ended, the night her own pack turned against her. It began with a howl that wasn't hers, and ended with her name written in blood. She remembered the council circle, 12 wolves in silver cloaks, their eyes sharp as blades. The air was cold that night, heavy with the scent of judgment. Her hands had been bound, but it wasn't the rope that hurt. It was the silence of those she'd once called family. "You brought this upon us," the elder had said. "The sickness, the deaths, the moon's silence, all of it began with you." She'd begged them to listen. She'd told them she hadn't caused the curse, that she didn't even know what she was. But their eyes were filled with fear, the kind that turns love into weaponry. A child had died that night, a boy she used to protect, and fear needed a face. Hers was the easiest to hate. She remembered the whispers. Omega, orphan, cursed blood. No one knew she carried something ancient, not even her. Until the night her skin burned with silver fire, and the moon answered her scream. That was the night she was branded, the mark of the lost alpha, runes carved into her very soul. And from that night on, she was hunted, shunned, forgotten. Aria blinked, the cave returning around her. The fire hissed softly. Kael was awake. She could tell by the way his breathing changed, steady but not asleep. He spoke without looking at her. "You dream loud?" Her lips twitched bitterly. "I wasn't dreaming." "Then you were remembering." The tone of his voice wasn't prying, it was recognition, like he knew the weight of memory too well. She turned slightly, the flicker of flame catching his face. Sharp lines, old scars, eyes that had seen too much. There was something in them that made her chest tighten, pain, regret, the quiet kind that eats you from the inside. "You talk like someone who's seen hell," she said quietly. He met her gaze. "I lived there." Silence again, but not empty this time. Full of ghosts. Finally he said, "They called you cursed?" She nodded. "They said my blood carried death." He exhaled slowly, eyes dropping to the floor. "Then you and I share more than a mark." Aria studied him. The flickering light revealed the faint shimmer of something along his throat. Scars shaped like runes, burned deep. "What happened to you?" He hesitated. "A war." She waited. He looked at the fire, not her. "The Nightborn pack was strong once. We ruled the northern ridges, wild, untamed, until greed split us. My beta, the one I trusted most, sold us to the Silver Court. He promised them my head for power." His jaw tightened. "When the moon rose red, we fought, and I killed him." The words were quiet, but they shook the air between them. "I didn't mean to," he continued, voice low, "but he wore my father's scent, his blood, his voice. The prophecy said I would end the one who birthed me. I thought it was a lie, until that night." Aria's breath caught. "You killed your father?" "I killed my pack's faith," he said, "and maybe that's worse." She didn't know what to say. The silence pressed in, heavy with things that couldn't be fixed. He leaned back against the cave wall, staring into the embers. "They called me a monster, exile me, said I carried the curse of the moon's anger." His eyes met hers. "And then I found you." Her pulse stuttered. "You think that means something?" He nodded, slow and sure. "The prophecy, the child with fire in her veins, the one who could end the curse, or finish what it began." She shook her head, standing suddenly. "No, don't you dare tie me to your prophecy. I've been a curse all my life, not salvation." Kael's gaze followed her as she paced the cave, the glow from the fire tracing the trembling of her hands. "Aria," he said softly, "you can't keep running from what you are." She stopped, turned. "And what am I?" He rose to his feet, slow, deliberate. The shadows wrapped around him like armor. "You're the one the moon won't let die." Her throat tightened. "You don't know me." He stepped closer, just enough that she could feel the heat between them. "I know what it feels like to lose everything you were for something you never asked to be." Her defenses wavered. She wanted to hate him. For understanding, for getting too close. But his words slipped into the cracks she'd spent years patching over. "You think we're the same?" she asked. He smiled faintly, bitterly. "No, you're what I used to pray I could be. Alive." The words hit her harder than she wanted. Outside, the wind howled again, dragging snow into the mouth of the cave. The firelight flickered across his face, gold and grey, shadow and light. A man who had lost his pack, but not his will to protect. She sat down again, but this time, when she looked at him, she didn't see a stranger. She saw another exile. Another wound wearing a heartbeat. "I didn't kill them," she said suddenly. "The children who died. The sickness that spread, I didn't cause it." He nodded once. "I believe you." It took her a full heartbeat to realize how much those 3 words mattered. "No one ever said that before," she whispered. "They were afraid," he said. "Fear is easy. Belief takes courage." The fire crackled softly. Aria reached for the bandage around his arm, checking it without thinking. The silver burns had darkened but stopped spreading. Her fingers brushed his skin again. The contact sent a rush of warmth up her arm. Startling, uninvited. Her pulse quickened. Kael didn't move, didn't breathe. His gaze dropped to where her hand rested on him. "Your power," he murmured. "It reacts to mine." She pulled back like she'd been burned. "I didn't mean to. I know." The silence after that was unbearable. It wasn't awkward. It was charged. Like the world itself had leaned closer to listen. Aria turned away, staring at the cave wall. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the ice. Eyes glowing silver, faint runes pulsing under her skin. "Every time I get close to someone," she said, voice breaking, "they see this and turn away. I don't blame them. Who wants to touch a curse?" Kael moved then, slow but certain. He stopped just behind her, close enough that she could feel his breath against her neck. "I do." Her eyes closed. The words weren't gentle. They were raw, broken, real. He reached out, his fingers almost touching hers, but stopped a breath away. The space between them felt alive. For a moment, she thought he'd close it, that he'd reach for her, and the storm outside would fade into nothing. But instead, he whispered, "You don't need saving, Aria. You just need someone who won't run." The fire popped, scattering sparks. One of them landed on her wrist, but she didn't flinch. Her heartbeat synced with his, steady, strong, inescapable. Then she stepped back, because the pull was too strong, because she couldn't afford to want what she might lose. Kael said nothing. He just watched her, his eyes softening, his breath slow. The bond shimmered faintly between them, invisible but there. Two wolves, two broken souls, bound not by fate, but by pain, by the echo of everything they'd lost, and the dangerous hope that maybe, just maybe, they didn't have to be alone anymore. Outside, the storm died. Inside, something else began, and neither of them was ready for what the moon would demand next. The moonlight quivers. The lunar sanctum hums with a resonance that doesn't belong to this world. Ancient symbols burn brighter now, silver fire crawling across the walls like veins of living light. The air thickens, trembling under invisible power. Kael holds her close, feeling the shiver that runs through Aria's body, a pulse of wild energy beneath her skin. His fingers brush the curve of her jaw, and for a heartbeat, he swears he feels the rhythm of two heartbeats, hers and something ancient stirring within her. "Aria," he breathes, the sound half prayer, half warning. Her eyes open, silver, radiant, dangerous. Something inside her is changing. The silence fractures. A wind rushes through the temple, carrying whispers, voices not their own. Thousands of them, female, ethereal, echoing across centuries. "Moonborn Queen, blood of the first light, return to your throne." Kael stiffens. He's heard those words before, in the old Alpha songs, sung before battle, when the first Alphas bowed to the Moon Queen. He never believed them. Not until now. Aria clutches her chest, her breath ragged. "It's burning," she gasps. "Kael, what's happening to me?" "You're awakening," he answers, but his voice is low, uncertain. "The prophecy isn't a tale. It's written in your blood." The walls pulse once, twice, then crack open, revealing a hidden chamber below. A circular pool of liquid moonlight glows within, shifting between silver and red. Aria stumbles toward it, drawn like a moth to flame. Kael moves to stop her, but something stops him. His wolf growls in his mind, not out of danger, but reverence. She must walk alone. Aria kneels at the edge of the pool. Her reflection shimmers. But it isn't her face she sees. It's another woman's, crowned with moonfire, eyes like galaxies, lips curved in sorrow. "Who are you?" Aria whispers. The reflection smiles faintly. "You are," and then the light swallows her. Kael's roar shakes the cavern. He dives forward, reaching for her, but the moonlight flares and throws him back. He slams into the temple wall, pain lancing through his body, yet his eyes never leave her. Aria's body lifts into the air, suspended in a pillar of light. Her hair whips around her face, her veins glowing silver, as if molten fire runs through them. Symbols crawl across her skin, ancient runes, marks of dominion and memory. When she screams, it's not in pain, it's in release. The sound shakes the mountains. Outside, the night sky splits. A streak of crimson cuts across the moon. The prophecy has begun. Hours, or maybe seconds, pass before the light fades. Aria falls into Kael's arms, trembling. Her eyes are no longer silver, but something deeper, layered, storm grey, threaded with faint threads of moonlight. Kael looks into them and feels the weight of eternity pressing down on him. "What did you see?" he whispers. Aria's lips part, voice hoarse. "The truth. The curse wasn't mine, it was theirs." "The council," she nods weakly. "They feared her return, so they silenced her bloodline. They branded us cursed, because they couldn't control the flame." Kael clenches his fists. "They made you a scapegoat." "They made me a weapon," she corrects softly, "and the moon just woke it up." Kael rises, pacing the temple floor. "If the prophecy is real, then every alpha will come for you. They'll see you as a threat." She looks up at him, quiet but unyielding. "Then let them come." Her voice carries a power it never had before. Calm, deadly, like the whisper of an oncoming storm. Kael stops. For the first time, he's not sure whether to protect her or kneel. They leave the sanctum before dawn. The mountains stretch endless and cold around them. Below, the forest glimmers faintly under a fading moon. Aria walks ahead, her steps unsteady but resolute. The world feels different now, more vivid, more alive. She can hear the heartbeat of the forest, the cries of wolves miles away, the whisper of the moon, even when hidden by clouds. Kael follows silently. His gaze never leaves her. When they reach the river's edge, she stops and stares into the water. Her reflection ripples, and for a second, the Moon Queen's face appears again, faint and ghostly. "Do you regret saving me?" she asks. Kael's response is slow, deliberate. "No, but I'm starting to regret wanting you." She turns to him. "Why?" "Because everything about you is a war I can't win." The air between them tightens. Their gazes lock, a tension more dangerous than claws or teeth. She steps closer. "Then why are you still here?" "Because my wolf doesn't care about logic," he murmurs. "He only knows your scent." Her breath catches. For a moment, she forgets the prophecy, the curse, the bloodlines. There is only him, his nearness, the heat radiating from his skin, the storm building between their hearts. But then, she remembers the moon bleeding red, the cost of power, the price of love. She steps back. "If you stay, you'll burn with me." Kael's lips curl into something between a smile and a snarl. "Then let me burn." They continue their journey through the shadow wood, where the moonlight never touches the ground and the trees whisper secrets in the dark. Kael teaches her to control the flare that erupts beneath her skin, to breathe through the pain when the moon pulls too hard. Aria learns fast, too fast. At night, when she trains, the forest glows faintly silver. Her power bends the mist and calls the wolves. Some boil instinctively, others flee. Kael watches from a distance, torn between awe and fear. He knows the prophecy's second line. The Alpha reborn shall love what he is destined to destroy, and he prays to the moon that it isn't her. One night, as the wolves howl from the valley below, Aria feels it, a pull in her chest. The same force that drew her to Kael the first time, but this time it's calling her toward the north. "The blood packs," Kael says grimly. "They're gathering." "How many?" "All of them." She exhales, steady. Then the war has begun. Kael turns to her, eyes dark with unspoken emotion. "You don't have to face this alone." She meets his gaze, unwavering. "I was born alone. I'll die the same if I must. But this..." She places her hand over her heart. This power doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the packs that were silenced. To every wolf who ever bowed under false rule. He reaches for her wrist, his grip firm but trembling. And what if you lose control? Her answer is quiet but sharp. Then you'll have to stop me. The wind howls through the valley, carrying the faint echo of war drums. The moon hides behind clouds, as if ashamed of what's to come. Kael looks at her one last time before they descend the mountain. If this is destiny, he says softly, then let the moon bear witness. Aria's reply is barely a whisper. Let it remember our names. And somewhere far below, in the council's stronghold, ancient eyes open in the dark. A voice like smoke murmurs, "The flame has returned." Another answers, then the hunt begins. The moonlight fades, only the heartbeat remains, slow, relentless, prophetic, the dawn before blood. The moon no longer hides. It burns red across the horizon, a wound in the sky. Aria and Kael stand at the edge of the valley, the river cutting silver through the darkness below. The world feels wrong, too still, too silent. Even the wind holds its breath. Then the first howl breaks it. Low, broken, followed by another, then dozens. The sound rolls over the mountains like thunder. Kael's hand tightens around the hilt of his blade. They found us. Aria's pulse flutters, matching the rhythm of the drums that begin to echo in the distance. The war drums of the Bloodfang pack. The council didn't send diplomats. They sent executioners. The first wolves emerge from the tree line, cloaked in black, their armor marked with the sigil of the High Council, a crescent cleaved in half. Their leader steps forward, a woman with silver eyes and scars that run from temple to jaw. Her scent is iron and snow, her voice cold enough to cut. "Kael Nightborn," she calls, "you stand accused of harboring the Cursed One. By the law of the Council, surrender her, or share her fate." Kael's shoulders square. "She is under my protection." The woman smirks. "Then you've chosen death." She lifts her hand, and the forest erupts. They come fast, dozens, maybe more. Blades gleam, claws flash. The night becomes a storm of steel and fur. Kael meets them head-on, his shift instant, bones snapping, sinew stretching, black fur bursting from his skin. His growl shakes the earth. Aria doesn't hesitate. Power surges beneath her skin, wild and cold. Frost spreads from her palms, racing along the ground in jagged veins of light. The first assassin lunges and freezes mid-air, encased in crystal. Another swings at her. She turns, the air rippling with cold, and his blade shatters before it touches her. But for every enemy she breaks, more come. The valley becomes chaos, the smell of blood and ozone mixing into something feral. Kael fights like he's been waiting his whole life for this war. Every movement is precise, lethal. But even he feels the shift. The way Aria's power distorts the air around them. He catches glimpses between blows, her hair floating as if caught in an unseen current, her eyes glowing brighter with every heartbeat. Something inside her is unraveling. He sees her strike, not with control, but with instinct. The frost leaps beyond her will, crawling across friend and foe alike. "Aria," he roars, "stop, you'll kill them all." She doesn't hear him. Or maybe she can't. A Bloodfang wolf tears into Kael's side. He howls, slamming the creature into the rocks, but pain burns deep, silver-tipped claws. The wound sizzles. He drops to one knee, vision blurring. Through the haze, he sees Aria standing in the river. Surrounded by mist and light, the assassins circle her, hesitant now, fear mixing with awe. She raises her hand. The water obeys. It rises, twisting into tendrils of ice, serpentine and sharp. With a single breath, she sends them flying, impaling the attackers. Their screams echo across the valley. Kael's heart lurches, not from the bloodshed. He's seen worse, but from the look on her face. Empty, detached, like a goddess who's forgotten she was once human. Then, a voice cuts through the chaos. "Kael!" He turns. His lieutenant, Darren, emerges from the shadows, bloodied but alive, his golden eyes burning with fury. "What have you done?" Darren shouts. "You brought her here. You brought this upon us." Kael snarls, trying to rise. She's not the enemy. She is the curse. Darren points toward Aria, whose power still crackles across the battlefield. "Look at her. She's destroying everything she touches." Kael hesitates, just for a breath. But Aria sees it, the flicker of doubt, the second of silence, and it cuts deeper than any blade. The battle fades around her. All she can hear is her own heartbeat and his silence. Kael turns toward her, but she's already backing away. "Aria, wait." She shakes her head. "No, don't." Her voice trembles, not from fear, but heartbreak. "You said I wasn't a monster." Her power hums beneath her skin, rising like a tide. Her eyes glisten, pain and frost tangled together. "Then why do you look at me like one?" The words hit harder than the fight itself. Kael steps forward, reaching for her, but the frost rushes between them, forming a wall of glittering ice. "Aria, please," he growls. "Listen to me." She turns, her silhouette fading into the mist. "You listen to them instead." And then she's gone, swallowed by the forest, leaving only silence and cold behind. The battle ends, but victory is hollow. Bodies litter the valley, steam rising from blood-soaked snow. Kael stands among them, chest heaving, his fur matted with crimson. Darren limps to his side, clutching a wounded arm. "She's gone," Darren says flatly. "Good, let her stay gone before she kills the rest of us." Kael's claws dig into the dirt. "Watch your tongue." "She almost killed you," Darren spits. "You saw it, the look in her eyes. That wasn't a woman, Kael. That was the prophecy." Kael doesn't answer, because part of him fears Darren is right. When the sun rises, the valley looks like a graveyard. The river runs red. The frost glitters like shards of glass. Kael stands alone at the edge of the water, the echo of her last words haunting him. "Then why do you look at me like one?" He looks down at his reflection. The wolf within stares back, dark, blood-stained, monstrous. Maybe she wasn't the only one changing. Far away, beyond the mountains, Aria runs until her lungs ache and her feet bleed. The forest closes around her like a living thing. Every tree, every stone, every whisper seems to know her name. Her power still hums, restless, uncontainable. Frost flowers bloom where her tears fall. The ground trembles with every step she takes. She collapses beside a frozen lake, her body shaking. "I didn't mean to," she whispers to no one. "I didn't." But the forest doesn't answer. Only the wind moves, carrying faint words that don't belong to her. "You can't outrun the moon, child of flame." She looks up, and for the first time, sees her reflection not as herself, but as the moon-born queen. The same eyes, the same glow, the same curse. "Why me?" she breathes. "Why this?" The reflection smiles faintly. "Because only the broken can rebuild the world." And as the moon fades into dawn, Aria realizes what she must do. To end the curse, she must embrace it, even if it destroys her. Back in the valley, Kael gathers what remains of his pack. Many are wounded, some won't see another night. The air reeks of smoke and sorrow. The council's banners still burn on the riverbank. Kael watches the flames die and makes his choice. No more running, no more hiding. If the world wants war, he will bring it to their gates. But first, he must find her. Night falls again. Kael stands before the ruins of the sanctum, staring into the broken moonlight that filters through the cracks. The prophecy plays in his mind, each word now a blade. The Alpha reborn shall love what he is destined to destroy. He closes his eyes, hearing her voice, her heartbeat, her pain. And beneath the sorrow, something else stirs. A resolve carved from the same darkness that made him an alpha. He will not let her burn alone. In the distance, the first snow begins to fall, soft, silent, endless, and somewhere beneath that frozen sky, two souls, bound by blood, torn by fate, move toward the same inevitable war. The world has chosen its monsters, and both wear the same face. The rain has stopped, but the storm hasn't. It lingers, soft, heavy, inside their hearts. Kael follows her scent through the forest, each step dragging him through mud and regret. The air is sharp with the tang of iron and frost, and her trail glows faintly where her power has scorched the ground, half fire, half ice. She's losing control again. He pushes through the undergrowth, ignoring the sting of his reopened wounds. His muscles ache, his ribs burn, but none of that pain matters. Not compared to the silence in his chest, where her heartbeat used to echo through the bond. Then he hears it, a soft sound, barely there. Not a growl, not a scream. A breath. Weak. Fading. Kael's head lifts. The scent of blood thickens near the falls. He moves faster now, his steps barely touching the earth, until he reaches it. The veil of water, cascading from the cliffs, silver in the moonlight. Behind it, faint light flickers. A cave. He steps through the waterfall, water drenching his clothes, the chill biting into his skin. But then he sees her. Aria, curled against the wall, pale and shaking. Her hands glow faintly, frost and flame weaving together like two warring souls. The light dances across her face, beautiful and terrible all at once. Her breath catches when she senses him. "Don't," she warns, voice cracking. "Stay back." Kael doesn't listen. He kneels, his shadow falling over her. The scent of her blood is everywhere, sweet, wrong, heartbreakingly human. "You're hurt," he says softly. She laughs, bitter and raw. "That's what happens when you run from everything that ever wanted to kill you." Kael's jaw tightens. "You shouldn't be alone." Aria looks up at him, eyes flashing silver. "Then why did you let me be?" The question lands like a blade between them. Kael exhales slowly, lowering himself beside her. He reaches out, careful, his hand brushing her arm. Her skin is ice cold, trembling. She flinches, but doesn't pull away. For a moment, the only sound is the waterfall's whisper and the faint hum of her power beneath her skin. "I thought I was protecting you," he says finally. "By hesitating," she murmurs, eyes still fixed on the floor. "By standing there while they called me a curse." He doesn't answer. Because she's right. He unwraps a torn cloth from his arm and presses it against her wound. The blood seeps through, hot against his fingers. She hisses but doesn't resist. "Still trying to play the hero?" she asks, voice thin but defiant. "No," Kael says quietly, "just trying to keep you alive." Her lips tremble, not from pain, but from something deeper. "Why?" He looks at her. Really looks at her, the exhaustion in her eyes, the fear she hides behind every sharp word. And then he says it. "Because I swore once to kill you." The words freeze the air. Her gaze snaps to his, wide and wild. "What?" He doesn't move, doesn't flinch. "Before I ever saw your face, before I knew what the prophecy really meant, the council made me swear. They said the child of the moon-born queen would destroy us all. That if I ever found her, I'd end her life before her power did." Aria's breath catches. Her light flickers violently, the frost spreading along the cave wall. "So what changed?" she whispers. Kael's voice is barely a growl now. "You did." She stares at him, trembling. Anger, confusion, a hurt that runs too deep to name. Her power surges, frost crawling up her arm, fire burning in her other hand. The air cracks between them. "You had your chance," she says, every word shaking. "So why didn't you?" He looks at her, eyes dark, voice low. Because when I found you, I didn't see a weapon. I saw someone the world had already destroyed once. I couldn't be the one to finish it. The frost melts. The fire dies. For a long time, she just breathes, ragged, uneven. Then she looks away. "You're a fool," she whispers. "Maybe," he says, "but I'd rather be a fool than what the council made me." The silence that follows is heavy but different now, less like distance, more like something fragile trying to mend. Kael finishes bandaging her arm, his hand steady despite the tremor in his chest. When he looks up, she's watching him. Not with anger, not with fear, something else, something dangerously close to trust. The waterfall outside shifts, moonlight spilling through like liquid glass. The light paints her face, and for the first time since he's known her, Aria doesn't look like she's ready to run. She looks tired. Humans. Beautiful. "Kael," she starts, but the word dies on her tongue. He leans closer, the scent of rain and wild earth between them. "What is it?" Her eyes flicker to his mouth. Just once, then away. Her pulse stumbles. He does too. Their world narrows to breath and distance. The air hums, heavy with what they don't say. He can feel the heat of her through the thin fabric of her tunic, feel the rhythm of her heart echoing against his. She whispers, "This shouldn't be happening. I know. It's dangerous. I know that too. Then why? Because I can't stay away anymore." The space between them breaks. He leans in. Slow, deliberate, giving her time to stop him. She doesn't. Their lips almost touch, heat trembling in the air. Then, from deep in the forest, a howl splits the night, low, close. Kael freezes, instinct snapping back like a whip. His eyes flick toward the cave mouth. "They're tracking us." Aria exhales, the moment shattering. She pulls away, pressing a trembling hand to her chest. "Of course they are," she mutters bitterly. "They always are." Kael moves to the entrance, scanning the shadows. "We can't stay here long." "Then go," she says. "You've done enough." He turns back, voice rough. "I'm not leaving you." She stands now, weak but defiant. "You can't protect me from this, Kael. You saw what happened at the river. You saw what I am." He steps closer, eyes steady. "I saw what you did to protect everyone else." Her lip trembles. "You don't understand." "I do," he interrupts. "Because I've lived my whole life running from what I am too." She looks at him for a long time, her defiance softening, her power flickering low like a candle in the wind. The silence stretches again, filled only by the rhythm of the falls and the beating of two unsteady hearts. Finally, she whispers, "When this ends, what then?" Kael's gaze drifts to the cave floor, then back to her. "When this ends, I'll tell you everything." Her breath catches at the promise in his voice. He turns away, staring into the dark. "Sleep, Aria. We'll move before dawn." They settle near the fire. He sits first, back against the stone wall. She hesitates, then lowers herself beside him, not touching, not speaking. Just breathing in the same fragile silence. The warmth from the flames paints their faces in gold and shadow. After a while, she leans back, exhaustion claiming her. Kael feels her shift, her back brushing his arm. He doesn't move, don't dare. The sound of the falls becomes a lullaby, soft and endless. And as sleep claims them both, they lie there, back to back, two broken souls who don't yet know they've already begun to heal each other. Outside, the moon rises higher, watching. The wind carries whispers through the forest, voices of the old ones, unseen and eternal. The bond stirs again. The flame remembers. And in the heart of that hidden cave, frost melts and warmth takes its place. The rain fell that night like punishment, cold, unforgiving. The forest, once alive with whispers and the scent of pine, now lay heavy under the weight of betrayal. Aria and Kael stood at the center of the council's stone circle, surrounded by shadows wearing wolfskins and lies. Torches flared, casting trembling halos of light around faces carved in judgment. They called it a peace negotiation, but peace was never on their tongues, only fear. Kael's hands were bound in silver, burning against his skin. Aria's wrists shimmered faintly, not from chains, but from the power struggling to stay caged beneath her flesh. The Elder Council loomed above them, cloaked in robes etched with moon symbols. Behind their cold eyes, centuries of superstition stirred. The oldest of them, Elder Corin, leaned forward, voice like a blade dipped in honey. "You have brought her here, Alpha Kael of Nightborn, the one they call the Lost Flame. Tell us, is she yours to command, or has she already consumed you?" Kael's jaw tightened. "She's no one to command." The crowd murmured, low, uneasy. Aria's gaze flicked toward him, quiet fire behind her eyes. For a heartbeat, she thought maybe, just maybe, he meant it. Then the beta stepped forward. Taran, the wolf who had once called Kael brother. His fur was streaked with scars, his loyalty with ambition. He bowed before the council, eyes gleaming like a predator who'd found his prey. "I warned him," Taran said, his tone dripping with righteousness. "I told him she was dangerous, that she wasn't one of us, but he refused to listen." He turned his gaze on Aria, and the hatred there was almost holy. "She's the child of the moonborn queen. The curse was reborn. The prophecy says she will consume the moon, and with it, every pack bound to its light." Gasps broke the night like glass shattering. The elders whispered. Wolves shifted uneasily. Aria's heart pounded against her ribs. The words felt like daggers she had swallowed long ago. Words she thought she'd outrun. She stepped forward. "I didn't choose this blood." Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't. "I didn't ask to see what your stories made me." Kael could have spoken then. He could have silenced the whispers, shattered the lies, and told them what he knew. That she had saved lives, not destroyed them. That she had fought beside him when everyone else turned away. But he didn't. His silence was louder than any scream. For a moment, his eyes darted to her, torn, uncertain. And that hesitation, that single flicker of doubt, cracked something deep inside her. Her lips parted in disbelief. "Kael?" He didn't answer. The fire that had burned steady in her heart began to splinter. Elder Corin raised his hand. "The prophecy is clear. If she is the moonborn heir, she cannot live. The Pax will never be safe while she breathes." "No!" Kael roared, but it was too late. The guards moved in, their spears tipped in molten silver, and something inside Aria snapped. The world went white. Silver flame erupted from her body, not gentle, not controlled, wild, raw, heartbroken. The ground split open beneath the council's feet. Wolves fell to their knees, howls breaking the night as their instincts bowed to something far older than fear. The torches exploded. The river beside the circle froze mid-current. Mountains cracked like glass under thunder. Kael shielded his eyes, shouting her name, but his voice was swallowed by the storm. At that moment, Aria wasn't the frightened girl he once found in the rain. She was the storm itself. Images flickered through the light, memories burning away, the cave where they first hid. The moment their hearts almost touched. The promise in his voice when he said, "Trust me." Gone, all of it, in one sweep of silver fire. Tears streamed down her face, glowing like liquid moonlight. "You said I wasn't a monster," she whispered, voice trembling with grief and fury. "Then why do you look at me like one now?" The air cracked open, and before anyone could stop her, her body dissolved into mist, a rush of cold wind and sorrow, scattering into the night. Silence. No breath. No sound. Just the echo of what she left behind. The council circle was gone, burned to ash. The moon hung heavy, dimmed, as if mourning. Kael fell to his knees. The smell of smoke and regret filled the air. He stared at the space where she had been, heart pounding with guilt that felt like chains. He whispered, hoarse, Aria. But the night didn't answer. The Beta's voice broke the silence. You see? Taryn spat. She was the prophecy. You brought ruin on us all. Kael rose, his eyes dark and distant. Maybe, he said quietly, but ruin doesn't burn this bright. He turned away, walking into the smoke, every step heavy with the weight of what he'd done and what he'd failed to say. And so the storm took her, not as a curse, but as a promise. The promise that light, no matter how it breaks, will always return. But Kael didn't see that yet. He only saw the ash, the emptiness, and the ghost of the woman who taught him that love isn't the opposite of fear. It's the reason we face it. The forest was dead quiet after the fire. Nothing moved but the wind, slow, heavy, as if carrying the ghost of her scream. For 3 nights the moon had hidden its face, and for 3 nights Kael searched. He crossed rivers turned to ice, walked through villages where wolves refused to shift, through meadows that once bloomed silver and now smelled of ash. Everywhere he went, people whispered of her, not as Aria, not as the girl he failed, but as something else, a spirit, a curse, a goddess reborn in fury. He wanted to deny it, but deep in his bones, he knew. The prophecy had awakened, and she was out there, burning brighter than the lies that condemned her. Far to the north, beyond Bloodridge Valley, the Bloodfang Alpha prepared his ritual. He was old, older than the stories, older than the moon's first oath. His fur, white as frost, his eyes, black as the void between stars. He stood within a ring of runes carved into stone and bone, the light of 1,000 candles dancing around him. Before him, the elders knelt, their chants rising in a rhythm older than speech. The moon bleeds, they whispered, the curse awakens, bind the flame before the world burns. A figure lay bound at the center of the altar, chains of silver coiling around her like vines of ice. Her hair, once gold, now shimmered with silver-white fire beneath her skin. Her breathing was slow, but steady. Aria. She wasn't dead, she had been taken. The Bloodfang Alpha believed he could drain the power from her blood, channel it into the moon, and end the prophecy forever. But power like hers was never meant to be stolen, only understood. And as the ritual began, the moon above them turned blood red. The chains trembled first, then the ground, then the air. Every rune carved in the stone glowed brighter, burning with the effort to contain her. The elders' voices faltered. The Bloodfang Alpha stepped forward, raising his hand. Moonborn child, he intoned, your light ends here. He pressed his palm against her heart. Silver flame bled through his hand, up his arm, across his face. He didn't flinch. He smiled. Be still. But the moon, the moon did not listen. It began to pulse in the sky, each beat syncing with the rhythm of her heart. And somewhere deep inside that darkness, where her fear and fury met, Aria remembered. She remembered her mother's voice, a lullaby that spoke of fire hidden beneath gentleness. She remembered Kael's eyes, the way he said her name, like a promise and a plea. She remembered every hand that pointed at her, every voice that called her curse, and every breath she took to prove them wrong. And she opened her eyes. Silver light erupted like dawn, breaking through the ribs of the earth. Chains snapped like glass. The runes melted into the soil. The Bloodfang Alpha stumbled backward, snarling, half awe, half terror. Aria rose from the altar, bare feet touching cracked stone that glowed beneath her steps. Her hair flowed like liquid light, her skin a map of constellations. The silver flame that had once burned wild and untamed now bent to her will, wrapping her in armor made of moonlight. Her voice, when it came, was quiet, but it carried through the valley like thunder through mist. You called me a curse, she said. I call myself rebirth. At that moment, every wolf within 100 miles felt it, a tremor that wasn't fear, but recognition. a call that came from something ancient and pure, something they had forgotten they were all connected to. And miles away, Kael froze mid-step, his breath caught in his throat. The scent hit him first, that same clean, sharp note of rain and frost and fire. Then came the pulse. Through his bond, through his chest, through his soul. She was alive. He didn't think so. He ran, through forests still smoking, through rivers that glowed faintly under red moonlight. He ran until the land itself began to shake, until he saw the light, silver, radiant, pulsing from the temple ruins in the valley below. He stopped at the ridge. There she was, Aria, standing on the altar that once tried to contain her body wreathed in flame so bright it painted the clouds. Wolves surrounded her, blood-fanged soldiers, their eyes wide with terror, and at the center of it all, the blood-fang alpha roared. "Seize her!" Kael didn't wait. He shifted mid-leap, his black fur catching the glow of the flames. He tore through the soldiers, claws meeting steel, blood meeting soil. When he reached the center, she turned, and for a heartbeat, everything stopped. Their eyes met, her light reflected in his. Not as forgiveness, not yet, but as recognition. They had both been broken by the same hands. "Aria," his voice cracked, rough, reverent. "Forgive me. Let me fight by your side." Her gaze softened, just barely. Then she nodded. "Then fight," she whispered. The blood-fang alpha lunged. The ground cracked. Wolves collided in a storm of fang and flame. Kael met the alpha head-on, his strength fueled by guilt and love and something larger, faith. Each blow he landed carried years of silence, every snarl a confession he'd never spoken aloud. Aria stood at the center, her flame growing wilder, brighter. Every time a wolf fell, she felt their pain, their fear, their confusion. And the flame inside her responded not with destruction, but healing. Light poured from her palms, reaching across the battlefield. Where it touched, wolves shifted mid-air, snarling, then bowing, then kneeling. It wasn't a submission, it was an awakening. The blood-fang alpha staggered back, his eyes wide. "What are you?" he hissed. Aria stepped forward, silver flame trailing from her fingertips. "The balance you broke," she said softly. "The moon's true air." He lunged again, faster, desperate. But this time, Kael was there. He caught the alpha mid-strike, their claws locking. Aria lifted her hand, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The ruins around them began to glow. Symbols carved into stone flared with life. The ancient language of the Pax, written in light and song. And as the final word burned across the sky, Aria spoke. "I am not your sacrifice." The explosion of power was silent, a single breath, then release. The flames weren't consumed, they were restored. Grass grew where ash had fallen. Wolves rose where bodies had lain. The stars shifted overhead, realigning as if they'd been waiting for this moment. Kael watched in awe as silver light wrapped around her, forming wings, not of feathers, but of pure, living energy. The moon itself descended slightly, its glow softening to match her heartbeat. And when it was done, she stood not as cursed, not as queen, but as the bridge, the heart that bound every pack, every soul, every wound together. Kael fell to one knee, not out of worship, but out of understanding. She turned to him, her expression unreadable, then offered her hand. He took it, and the bond reignited, stronger than before, no longer forced, no longer feared. The world around them began to heal. Wolves shifted back to human form, bowing their heads. The blood-fang alpha, broken, humbled, looked up at her, tears mixing with soot. "End me," he rasped. She shook her head. "No," she said quietly. "You will live to see what you feared most, peace." And so, under a sky reborn, the prophecy fulfilled itself, not through death, but through balance. The flame that was meant to destroy instead became the light that bound the world back together. Aria Vale, once hunted, once condemned, had become the heartbeat of the moon. Kael stood beside her, the shadows finally lifting from his soul. For the first time, his voice was steady. "What now?" he asked. She smiled faintly, eyes glimmering like starlight. "Now," she said, "we begin again." The kind of silence that hums with completion and promise. In the end, she was never the monster they feared. She was the fire that reminded the world what it means to feel, to fight, to love. The forest was hushed now. Ash drifted down like snow, settling on broken branches, on the scorched earth, on the remnants of a battle that had shaken the world. The moon hovered low, a pale witness, its silver light smoothing over the jagged edges of ruin. Aria stood in the center of the clearing, her silver flame finally dimmed, yet still shimmering faintly across her skin. Her chest rose and fell with each breath, steady now, though the tremor of exhaustion lingered in her limbs. Every inch of her carried the memory of the fire she had unleashed, the rage and power and sorrow that had once threatened to consume her. And yet she was whole, stronger, sharper, luminous with the truth of who she was. Kael stepped closer, his boots crunching softly against charred earth. He didn't rush. He had learned that moments like this demanded patience, reverence. The man who once hesitated to touch her now moved with quiet certainty, every step deliberate, as if he was learning to map her heart through distance and glance alone. When he finally reached her, their eyes locked. Aria's gaze, usually so guarded, softened just enough to reveal the storm beneath the calm. The same storm Kael had been drawn to from the moment he found her, wounded and hunted, trembling in the shadow of her own power. "Do you still see the monster?" she asked, voice barely louder than a whisper. The question lingered, heavy with the weight of betrayal, of exile, of years of fear and misunderstanding. Kael's lips curved into the faintest smile. "No," he said quietly. "I see my alpha." The words hung between them, suspended like the last note of a song. There was no rush, no false urgency, only the soft, electric tension of two hearts sinking after everything had fallen apart. The air shimmered, carrying the faint scent of smoke and silver flame, of wet earth and moonlight, of all the moments that had led them to this fragile, unshakable point. Around them, the world whispered. Branches groaned under the weight of ash. Rivers, freed from frost and fire, murmured softly. Wolves in the distance lifted their heads, sensing the change. The shift that came not from dominance, but from balance restored. And though the blood-fanged soldiers lay silent, broken, their fear replaced by awe, the universe itself seemed to pause in reverence, for the girl who had refused to be anyone's pawn, the alpha who had claimed her destiny with fire and mercy alike. Aria closed her eyes, breathing in the smoke, the moonlight, the memory of chaos that had made her this. Unbroken, untamed, luminous. Every scar on her body, every tear she had shed in secret, every bite that had drawn blood across her ribs, was now a thread in the tapestry of her becoming. She was no longer running, she was no longer hiding. Kael reached out, brushing a silver-flecked strand of hair from her cheek. The gesture was tender, careful, reverent, a silent promise that he would not let the world dictate her worth again. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to lean into that touch. The warmth of his hand, the weight of his gaze, the subtle pull of their bond. It all converged in a single, fleeting heartbeat. And yet, even in this moment of fragile peace, the world whispered warnings. Far above, the moon's glow shifted, casting elongated shadows across the valley. The prophecy had been fulfilled, yes, but fulfillment was not an ending. It was a doorway. The echoes of what could come, the ghosts of packs who still feared the power she wielded, and the unknown eyes watching from the darkened ridges beyond the valley, reminded them that victory was never permanent. Kael sensed it too. He pulled back slightly, not from her, but from the stillness, from the knowledge that even as the wind carried their relief, it also carried danger. He placed a steadying hand over hers. "Whatever comes next," he murmured, voice low and steady, "we face it together." Aria's lips quirked into the faintest of smiles. "I've learned," she said softly, "that alone I can burn the world, but with you, I can protect it." The words were simple, but in them lived the weight of everything: betrayal, fire, exile, love, and a destiny she had once feared she would never control. And now we ask the question that lingers long after the moonlight fades. Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? Would you have seen the heart beneath the fire, the courage beneath the scars, the love she risked giving even when the world had branded her a curse? Because that is the choice Kael made, and that is the choice that lies before every soul who witnesses her rise. Ash swirled at their feet like snowflakes caught in a warm current. The valley was quiet now, but the stillness was pregnant with possibility. Every tree, every rock, every whisper of wind seemed to carry her story. A story of fire reclaimed, of destiny embraced, of love that refused to be silenced. And though they stood victorious, the shadow of the future was not gone. There were eyes watching from cliffs beyond the valley. There were whispers in the wind that promised trials yet unseen. But at this moment, Aria was unafraid. She was the silver flame. She was the heartbeat of the moon. And she was not alone. If this story lit something inside you, if your heart raced with every silver spark, every whispered danger, every stolen glance between Aria and Kael, subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories, because under this moon we tell tales that burn. Tales of fire, of love, of courage. Tales that refuse to let you look away. And remember, the question remains, echoing in the spaces between heartbeats. Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? The stage is set, the story continues, and for those who dare to follow, the fire has only just begun. Dawn broke slowly over Bloodridge Valley. The sky bled red, and the clouds hung heavy, like the last exhale of a storm that had scarred the land. Aria and Kael stood atop the highest cliff, their hands intertwined, the warmth of their touch a fragile anchor against the chill of early morning. The ruins below whispered stories of fire and frost, of battles waged and destinies claimed, but the horizon promised more, promises not yet fulfilled. Aria's silver flame still lingered faintly across her skin, soft as mist in the morning sun, yet it pulsed beneath her veins like a living heartbeat. Her eyes scanned the valley, searching for threats, for signs, for anything that might challenge the fragile peace she had carved with fire and will. Kael's presence was solid beside her, a shield, a question, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that refused to break, no matter how the world had tried to tear them apart. The wind carried more than the scent of ash and pine. There was a subtle tremor beneath their feet, the faint pulse of power not yet spent, not yet understood. Aria's chest tightened, a mix of anticipation and unease twisting in her stomach. She felt the echo of the prophecy in the pit of her soul, the warning, the promise, the call to something greater than herself. Kael's grip tightened slightly, sensing her tension. "You feel it too," he murmured, voice rough with sleep and lingering adrenaline. Aria nodded, not trusting herself to speak, because words could never capture the weight of what had been unleashed and what was still coming. He had fought beside her, bled beside her, and yet even he did not know the full extent of what she could become, what the silver flame could still awaken. From the mist below, shadows began to stir. At first subtle, almost hidden in the folds of the valley, and then a figure emerged, tall, poised, unmistakable. Her eyes glowed silver, sharp and luminous against the darkness of her silhouette. The woman did not move like a mortal. Her presence commanded the air, bending it, weighing it, pressing on the hearts of all who dared look her way. Aria's pulse quickened, her fingers clenched around Kael's hand, not in fear, but in recognition. Recognition of the fire mirrored in another, a spark that was not hers alone. The wind whispered across the cliff, carrying a single, chilling line. She is not the only one with fire in her blood. The words cut deeper than any blade. The shadowed woman's gaze seemed to pierce through the veil of morning fog, reaching into Aria's chest, into Kael's, into the heart of everything they had fought for. It was both a warning and a declaration, a herald of challenges yet to come. Kael's jaw tightened, his grip firm, protective, instinctive. "This isn't over," he said quietly, almost to himself, almost as if stating it aloud might bend fate to their will. Aria's lips parted, ready to answer, to promise, to warn, but the words died in her throat. Her eyes remained fixed on the distant silhouette, recognizing the power, the threat, and the inevitability of the confrontation yet to arrive. The valley itself seemed to hold its breath. Rivers that had once frozen with her rage now flowed quietly, reflecting the blood-red sun like molten fire. Ash still clung to rocks and branches, a reminder that victory had been won. But the war, the real test, was still unfolding beyond the horizon. Heartbeat, slow, measured. The sound of the earth itself seemed to sync with Aria's pulse, with Kael's, with the lingering echo of power that neither could fully control. Time stretched thin, the morning light unsure whether to burn or to wait, hovering over a world perched on the knife's edge between calm and chaos. The silhouette did not approach. I watched, patient, predatory, prophetic. There was understanding in those glowing eyes, a recognition of fire, of lineage, of strength. And yet, there was a promise of something else, something that would challenge Aria, test Kael, and reshape the destiny of every pack under the moon. Aria's gaze met Kael's, fleeting but absolute. A silent conversation passed between them, fear, trust, love, determination, and the unspoken acknowledgement that together they could face what was coming. But even as they drew closer, a shiver ran along the spine of the world. The shadowed figure's presence was not idle. It was a signal, a spark in the tinder of what lay ahead. The wind shifted, carrying whispers of a past that had not yet surrendered and a future that refused to be tamed. The cliff beneath their feet seemed to hum with latent energy, the earth remembering her power, remembering the fire that could burn or protect, remembering that this world would bend for no one, except those willing to claim it. Aria swallowed, the taste of ash and frost lingering on her tongue. She tightened her grip on Kael's hand, her resolve hardening like tempered steel. "Yes," she whispered to herself, voice low but steady, "it isn't over. And I will not run again." The shadowed woman blinked once, slowly, and vanished into the folds of morning mist. Or perhaps she had never truly moved at all, a ghost in the sunlit haze, a reminder that destiny had more fire in store than either of them could yet fathom. The valley exhaled, the rivers rippled, the ashes settled, but the heartbeat of the story, of Aria, of Kael, of the flame that burned in their veins, pulsed stronger than ever. And somewhere, just beyond sight, the world waited, watching, waiting for the fire to rise again. If you have followed their journey under the silver moon, if your heart has raced with every spark, every betrayal, every stolen breath, subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories, because this is only the beginning. Under this moon, we tell tales that burn, and the fire has only just begun. The heartbeat slows, fades, leaving only the whisper of wind, the distant howl of a lone wolf, and the lingering shadow of prophecy. The stage is set for the next chapter. The flame is not extinguished, and for those who dare follow, the story waits. Fierce, unbroken, and eternal. If this story touched you, subscribe, like, and share, because every full moon, new tales rise here at Moonlight Mate Stories.